Hey, this is Cameron. Welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. Today we are going to look at how to do summer fertilizing for your fruit trees. Let's get busy. Fertilizing your fruit trees is one of those things that seems like something you ought to be doing, but there's some mystery around what it is, when are you supposed to do it, and what are you supposed to use for it. And so I want to talk through a few of those concepts today. For the backyard grower, you notice we want to keep our tree's heights manageable and no higher than we're able to reach the fruit. And so one way that we're able to do that, once we have the tree at roughly the height that we want, is to reduce the amount of nitrogen that we're feeding it while still giving it the phosphorus and potassium. And so by having a low nitrogen, so a low N number, the first number you see you want to be low, that's going to help to manage the height of those trees to support your pruning. You're going to mainly be doing it by pruning, but you're going to be supporting it with the way that you're feeding them. I have 3 fertilizers that I'm using today. One, which is my main staple, is my Flower and Bloom 3-12-12. This is a low nitrogen, high phosphorus, high potassium combination. And this Flower and Bloom, they call it, made by Grow Power, I think it's produced fairly locally, so I don't know if you can find this particular one in your area. But what I'm able to do with this stuff is to feed all of the orchard this fertilizer. And having that low nitrogen number has really supported preventing some of the boomy growth. What I'm also using is this Osmocote. And the Osmocote has a lot higher numbers. I think this is 15, 9, 12. So really you're looking for the ratios. What are the ratios? The reason I'm using this Osmocote is this is a really high quality, so is the Grow Power, but I wanted a higher nitrogen, high quality fertilizer. And so I'm using this Osmocote on a lot of the newer plantings, giving them a lot of those little micronutrients so that they really have what they need to thrive. And then what I also have here is this balanced 16, 16, 16. So it's like a triple 16. And what I'm using this for are on some of the plants that require a bit more nitrogen, like my subtropicals, like the citrus that I have, the oranges, the lemons. I'm also using it on my avocados because those are evergreen and they have a lot more, foliage that needs to be supported. I think I got a little guy hiding right here. Hey, kiddo. All right, so on the back of these things, it lets you know how much you're supposed to use. So in order to measure that out, I use this 8 tablespoon measuring cup. For the Grow Power, and what I'm really just using for these other ones, is I'm using 2 tablespoons per foot of tree size. So I'm not just looking at the tree height, although that's the easiest thing, but if it's a very short and wide tree, then I would use that as the numbers. So if it's 4 feet wide, then I'd treat it as a 4-foot tree. If it's 4 feet tall or 6 feet, multiply the number by 2, and that's what I use this. Now, in this orchard, I have a lot of stuff multi-planted. And so rather than going and just doing one tree and then doing another, I'm going to be fertilizing the group. And so what I'm doing is I'm adding up the number of the total tree height. So if I have 3 trees and they're all 8 feet tall, I know that I have 24 feet of tree, and that's going to be times 2. So I would use 48 tablespoons in order to feed them. Does that make sense? So when you've got close planting, add up all of the tree heights into one, and that should be your final number. So, and then I've got this spreader. This spreader's made it easier. Normally I used to take this and have to wiggle it like this, and there'd be a big bunch here dumped, and then there'd be nothing over here. So rather than doing that, just using this spreader, they got pretty inexpensively. I think I've got links to some of this stuff. It's really helpful to just make sure that it's a little more spread around the root ball. So, and the drip line. So we're gonna get started here. We'll start here with the citrus and the citrus and the citrus. We've got some stone fruit that are going to be fed. Again, I'm going to be focusing a little bit higher nitrogen on these citrus. I also want to encourage you, before you transition to an entirely low nitrogen feed, you can supplement with some nitrogen for a younger tree. So that way that tree's able to get some structure built up, because that's what you really want to focus on. You want some of that vigor for the first 3, maybe 4 years while you're establishing the structure of the tree, and then you want to slow it way down with the low nitrogen. So first few years, nitrogen is totally okay and good to go. All right, I need to refill my bucket here with my fresh bag of 3-12-12. You know you have a lot of trees when you buy fertilizer by 50-pound bags. I love about springtime is seeing how happy these trees are. Coming out and seeing this fig just booming full of fruit. Looking at our nectarines, this vigorous growth here and healthy. Look how healthy and happy this Asian pear foliage looks. And so springtime, before the harshness of the summer comes, is one of my favorite times. And this is a great time to make sure that these trees get set up. So don't neglect feeding your trees. I'm gonna feed now my apples, my nectarines, my figs, and my Asian pear.
Doing this Paul Greengrass style. It's Jason Bourne. The cameraman looks like he's doing just as much work.
That's right. Sometimes it is easier just to get down underneath the trees and to stay kind of in the center of it and just kind of go out, because then you're getting the tree line and you're getting the middle. You know, the roots are also going into the middle here, so hitting all the way around from the middle can sometimes work if you got a setup like this and the canopy's high enough. Man, this is so much fruit. Wow. This young cherry is a great example of what I ought to use this Osmocote for. This is going to give it all those micronutrients that maybe it doesn't have in the soil yet around it. This avocado is awesome, but I want to make sure this has plenty of nutrients, so I'm going to use the good stuff. This is a Honeycrisp apple. It's not even really supposed to grow well in our climate. I've noticed that we finally have a couple of fruit on it this year, but I'm going to use the good stuff. I want to give it a little bit more vigorous growth, so I'm using a higher nitrogen Osmocote here.
That cart's pretty nifty.
This cart is so handy. And having moved to these solid rubber tires has made all the difference.
Did you replace the tires?
I did. Did the whole wheel, yeah.
Wow.
Because this thing was getting thorns in it every minute, and then you don't end up using it, which is the point. So I thought, I'm keeping this cart. I'm just gonna spring for the extra and just get those tires on it. These super bushy ones, I'm just kind of sprinkling it on top, and then I'll just shake the tree to let the stuff fall down.
Little pellets fall.
Yeah. It's too hard to get underneath, and plus these are thorny. So that's another thing. How are they supposed to know about it? If they don't hit the notification bell, they're just hoping that YouTube says, oh, maybe they like to see it. They're like, why isn't he posting any videos? I wanted to see more Busy Gardener videos. You should have hit that notification bell. I can't push it for you. I wish I could, but I can't. Look at this gigantic Santa Rosa plum.
That is massive.
So you better believe this isn't getting an ounce of extra nitrogen if I can help it.
Right? You gonna trim that a little bit?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I come through, like you can get away with a single summer pruning, but I like to just come through and prune that stuff a couple times because I'm still interested in structure. More than just height, I want to make sure that stuff is branching out up high.
Yeah.
So I like to catch it earlier so that way if it's going to grow, it has time to do that. Yeah, this thing, just enormous. This stuff just 3 weeks ago probably was about as high as I can reach.
Yeah, like
now it's a solid
like
4 feet of growth.
Like you're like what, like 6'2", 6'3", right? 6'1".
Yeah.
Like, and you have a long arm span.
On top of that.
And you can't even reach the top of this.
Yep.
It's like easily 8 feet.
And the good news is that if there were fruit up there, the fruit would weigh it down, but I don't want stuff going up that high. Look out! Kyle's gonna make subscription jokes unless you subscribe. Now is a good time to do it. If you push it right now, he'll stop. Push it. Please. Please. All right, really important point about fertilizing plants in containers. Plants in containers are very, very sensitive because they've got a closed system. Stuff doesn't leach away the same way that it does. So you always, as general practice, unless you're seeing some effects of not fertilizing, you want to do only about half of the recommended dosage, unless they give you specific dosages for potted plants. So where we'd normally be doing 2 tablespoons per foot of plant, we're only going to be doing 1 tablespoon. Because otherwise it creates a toxic environment and it can really harm your plants. So unfortunately, when they're in the pot versus in the ground, they're supposed to be fed every month. I don't want to tell you how long ago I fed these, but let's just say it was before Christmas. So really, during dormant months, you don't even need to feed blueberries, but I should have been feeding them the last 3 months and I'm not yet. So I'm going to do that now. Wow, we're back to where we started. We're hot, we're tired, we're thirsty, but grateful that these trees are no longer hungry because I actually took the time to feed them. Make sure you're feeding your trees. They will grow, they'll produce some fruit, but you're really wanting to see that healthy growth, that, when you look at something and it's just bursting with fruit, when there's lots of vigor and things are growing, you can tell that it's an active system, and that happens in large part by you making sure that you're putting nutrients back into the ground to replace what's being taken up by the tree. Hey, thank you for tuning into this episode of The Busy Gardener, where we went and did our summer fertilizing for our fruit trees. Something that you want to do. I've got some links to some of this stuff down in the description, as well as some other things you're able to get that might be a help to you in your orchard. What questions do you have? Do you have some sort of method that you use that differs from this? Put those in the comments below. Anyway, sure appreciate you tuning in. And whether you've got 1 tree to fertilize in your orchard or 500, till next time, stay busy.